In this tutorial, we're going to be adding clouds and making the balloon appear to be moving through the game. So we double click anywhere on the layout and we're going to add a sprite, and these are going to be clouds. And so we're going to load the cloud that we already have. Now, something I haven't mentioned already, these are PNG files. And PNG files are portable network graphics. They're not JPEGs. PNGs are actually a web standard. JPEGs are not. Obviously, JPEGs are found a lot on the internet. It's the most common file format, image file format on the internet. But PNG is actually the web standard, and it has a couple of benefits to JPEGs. PNG has something that is called transparency, and you will see, specifically alpha transparency, and you'll see that as things kind of pass by each other, they won't have kind of this white background that JPEGs might on these kind of objects. They have see-through clear backgrounds. So that's a transparent background. That's one benefit to a PNG. The other benefit to a PNG is it uses compression still, like JPEGs do, but the trouble with JPEG compression is it's called lossy compression. It means it loses detail, it loses quality, whereas PNGs uses a lossless um, um, compression, and that means that you don't lose any quality, but the file size is still reduced. It doesn't do as great a job as a JPEG can do, but the compression it does use, because it loses no quality, it's still very good. Okay, so we're going to add this cloud JPEG, PNG, and we're just going to shrink that down, remembering holding down the Shift key. And all we're going to be doing is these aren't going to have any behaviors. Actually, we're just going to drop these, Control and copy these, Control paste, Control V for paste. But one thing you need to be aware of, something I haven't covered before, and if you by accident have added things to the control, you can't select it. You can't select it anymore. So I've added that cloud to the control layer. This one I haven't. This one's still in the object layer. But if it gets a bit confused, you can just kind of select the main thing in the project and select that to objects, and that should ping that back up. It hasn't. Let's try that again. Okay, because it's locked, we just need to unlock it. My mistake. Click the clouds. That's now selected all of them. You can now select objects, relock control, and you should be back to normal. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to add these throughout the game. Oh, I've done it again. Okay, lock that. Now I'm going to select objects, and now every time I paste, it will be pasting it into the objects. So that's what happened there. I had control selected, I had the control layer selected, I was pasting, and it pasted into that layer. So you must have the objects selected. Okay, so what you'll see is this is in front of, the cloud is in front of the balloon. That's not actually a bad thing, because that can make the game kind of interesting, and you could make it a little bit tricky by kind of grouping a load of clouds and making it a little bit more difficult for the user to control. Anyway, that's an optional, and we'll move these up here. You can finish the whole game off. I'm just going to add a few here and there just randomly. Okay, so we are now also going to give the background a color. So we've selected the control layer. I'm going to select the background color. Choose a kind of a blue that you think will look quite nice as the sky. I'm going to go with that. Okay, so we've got these clouds. The clouds are not actually going to move. What's going to be moving is we're going to move the balloon. The balloon's going to move up the um, up the game. And the game itself, the window that we're looking through into the game, that's going to move up as well. Okay, so we're now going to go to the event sheet. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to, every certain amount of time, we want it to move. And this is going to be a system event. We're going to add event. It's going to be a system event. And there's something in Construct 2 called delta time. And so it's every tick is a delta time. So every tick, it is not every second. That's important to note. it's different to that. Okay, so it's a lot more often. So add an action. We're going to move the position up. Now, before we add the action, what we need to do is we need to create a variable, because we're going to be changing the position on a regular basis. We need the variable to change on a constant basis. We're going to be taking numbers away from that. So we're going to right click anywhere in the event sheet, and we're going to add a global variable. This global variable we're going to call position Y, because we're using the Y coordinate to move through. So the initial value for that we're going to set to 700, okay? And that means it's kind of down the bottom of, we're going to be using a number that's down the bottom of the layout. So we're now going to be using this. So every action, every tick, we're going to have another system event, and we're going to set the scroll, and we're going to scroll Y. So we're going to set that, and every tick we're going to make it set to position Y. So I've started typing, and it selects all the things I can choose, but it's shown me the position Y variable that I've just created. So it's going to move every single tick. It's going to move to that position Y on the X coordinate. And we also we want to take away every single tick. We want to move that up. So it's another system action, and we're gonna subtract from a variable. Okay, so we're going to subtract from position Y. We're going to subtract 1. Okay, so it starts off at 6,700. We've set that variable here, but every single tick, it's going to take 1 away from position Y. So that's going to reduce down, and then it's going to scroll to that new position as it goes round. Remember, this whole thing goes in one massive loop, round and round and round, and so that's how the game's going to kind of move through. Now, if we do that, and if we play that, we'll just kind of move that away. What happens is we're moving through the game, but you can see that the balloon is kind of disappearing off the screen. Now, we're fine with the control ball because we can move that ourselves, but we actually need the balloon to move up as well. So we're going to now do that. So we're going to add another action, and it's going to be a balloon action now, because we're going to affect the balloon. And we want to change the Y position, so we're going to scroll, not scroll, we're going to set Y, and we're going to set Y to position Y, yeah, that variable. But remember that position Y is somewhere different. That's kind of the top left-hand corner of the screen, as it were, because remember, we're always measuring by default uh, that that point. So we're going to actually add to this to force it down the screen. Okay, so we can do that. We can just we can make a formula here, and it allows us to. Okay, so we're going to set the balloon to Y position to position Y, but we're going to add 250 to it. So if we click on that, let's see if we've got the number correct. Okay. Oh, let's try that again. Something's gone off. Got a bit strange there. Okay, so for some reason there's a delay before everything starts moving where we want it to move. Let's have a look for that. So we're going to set that scroll to 6,700, and every tick when we set that to position Y, subtract from position Y, and okay, so I'd set the number a little bit incorrectly. So we can see here, this is playing straight away. So I just changed the position Y to 6,400, and the balloon's a little bit higher, so we're going to change that to plus 200. Okay, so when we play this, the balloon's kind of down the bottom. Get that out of the way. And so it starts scrolling straight away. Okay, so remember, just change that position Y to 6,400, and the position Y, set Y, the balloon of position Y plus 200. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to move these objects up further. Let's try that again. Now we've got a problem. So if we Control C and then Control V and do that again here and here, now if we play this, we'll see what happens. So they all kind of fall at once because everything kind of falls. The gravity's kind of sucking them down. And so what we need to do is we need to kind of stop them from moving until they're actually on screen. Okay, so we want them to stay still here, and then as soon as the scroll kind of gets to them, we want them to release. To do that, you can change each individual property. So I've selected this single object here. I can scroll down and I can disable that, but that doesn't disable this one. That remains enabled. If I need to disable all of these, which is ultimately what I want to do, I click on the square block. Now, as you can see, it's got a little line here now because it knows one of them is disabled and everything else is enabled. What we actually want to do is we want to disable all of them. Okay, so that's basically untick the enable box. So all of these objects are now disabled. And so what happens now, nothing actually happens. I've disabled the physics object, okay? So I've disabled the physics object, and so this doesn't interact with it anymore because it's no longer a physics object. It will pop the balloon, but they're not doing anything. So what we need to do is we need to activate that the physics object as soon as it comes into screen view. So we're going to add an event. It's going to be a square block event. And what we're going to do is it's an on-screen event. Screen, that screen is on screen. There we go. On-screen event. And we're going to add an action. As soon as that's on screen, we want the square block. We want the physics object. Physics object set enabled. There we go. So physics object settings set enabled. And we want it to be enabled. Okay. Now if we play that again, so they don't fall from the sky until they're actually, there we go. Okay, so now we've got a game that's clearly, the balloon's clearly moving through the sky. In fact, what I'll do is we'll have a look at stopping that. Click save. Every now and again, just click save. We're gonna add another every tick. We're gonna add another action. We want to keep the ball kind of a little bit more still. So we can do that. We're going to do that with a touch control. So we touch control, and we're going to set position. Set position, and we want that to set that to. So we want it to be where it is. So we're going to use the touch sensor, touch control, X coordinate, and the touch control Y coordinate, but we're going to take away 1, and that's going to move it up again. Okay, so we click on, okay, so if we just test that, that should leave that. Yeah, okay, so that's now moving up through, that's fine. Okay, cool. If you want to change some of these clouds, so you can see these clouds are currently in front of it, pretty much everything, apart from there. What you can do is, if you want, because remember, there's a while there's layers, we've got this lower layer and this higher layer, and that obviously changes what's in front of what. All of these objects here, so this cloud and these objects here, they're all on the objects layer, but they're actually, there's a hierarchy to these as well. And what you can do is you can see this. So you can see this cloud is kind of hiding. Oops. You can see this cloud is hiding these blocks. Now you can leave it there. That's fine if you want, but you can also change the hierarchy within each layer. And you can see there's a Z index, and so this cloud is 14 of 34. So there's 34 objects on this layer, and this one is beneath this one. Okay, so what you can do, you can right click on it, you can change the Z order and you can send it to the bottom of the layer. And it only sends it to the bottom of the objects. Just bear that in mind. But that's something you can use as well as part of the gameplay and make it a little bit more tricky if you want. You can also, of course, change these objects. You can move this object maybe even down into the control object, and that actually places it in a lower, um, lower layer. But remember, you can't select it if it's locked. Okay, so next is we're going to add, in the next tutorial, we're going to add the distance to show, basically add the scoring to the game so they can see how far they've got through the game.